The information presented in this video regarding automotive technology, future vehicle designs, and industry projections is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. This content does not constitute professional advice, financial guidance for vehicle purchasing, or legal recommendations concerning automotive safety standards or traffic laws. The automotive industry is subject to rapid changes, and the concept vehicles discussed represent potential outcomes based on historical trends and current technological trajectories, rather than guaranteed production models. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence and consult with certified automotive experts or authorized manufacturer representatives before making any investment or purchasing decisions based on future technology trends. By the end of this year, the very definition of what it means to own a vehicle in the United States is going to undergo a fundamental, irreversible transformation. For over a century, the American dream was tied to the mechanical roar of an internal combustion engine and the tactile feedback of a steering wheel connected to the asphalt. But as we sit here in 2026, we are witnessing the final days of the car as a mere tool of transportation. We are entering the era of the software-defined vehicle, where your car is no longer a machine you drive, but a high-performance computer that happens to carry you. Imagine standing in your driveway and watching your car pull out of the garage autonomously, its glass roof tinting automatically to match the morning UV index, while the interior cabin has already reorganized its seating into a face-to-face lounge configuration because it knows you have a 9 a.m. briefing. This is not science fiction. This is the reality of the 2026 concept cycle. The controversy lies in the fact that as these machines become more capable, the human driver is being phased out of the equation. We are reaching a tipping point where the United States Department of Transportation is having to rewrite the rules of the road because the concept of a driver is becoming an antiquated legal term. This video is a deep dive into the 2026 concept landscape, an investigation into how the world's most powerful automakers are racing to solve the problem of the lost hour, that grueling, unproductive time Americans spend stuck in traffic every single day. We are going to explore how these concepts plan to give you back your time, your safety, and your freedom, while simultaneously challenging everything you thought you knew about privacy and personal mobility. The problem this solves for the US audience today is the stagnation of the American commute. For the average worker in cities like Los Angeles, Atlanta, or Houston, the commute has become a source of physical and mental decline. Current historical trends show that traffic congestion is not just a nuisance. It is a multi-billion-dollar drain on the US economy. The 2026 concept cars are designed to solve this by transitioning the vehicle from a cockpit into a third space, a place that is neither home nor office, but a seamless transition between the two. If you have ever felt the frustration of a 2-hour crawl on the I-405, these concepts represent the potential outcomes of a world where your car handles the cognitive load of navigation, allowing you to recover those lost hours for sleep, work, or connection. We are looking at a future where the stress of the road is replaced by the utility of the journey. To understand where we are going, we must first look at the massive shift in automotive architecture that has reached its zenith in 2026. In previous decades, concept cars were often just vaporware, sculptures of clay and LED lights that had no hope of reaching the road. However, the 2026 cycle is different because it is built on the backbone of matured technologies, solid-state batteries and level 4 autonomous stacks. Case studies of early 2020s prototypes showed that the biggest hurdle was energy density. Now, in 2026, we are seeing the results of billion-dollar investments into solid-state electrolytes. Unlike the lithium-ion batteries of the past, these power cells are non-flammable and offer energy densities exceeding 400 Wh/kg. This technological leap allows designers to throw away the old engine-first blueprints. Without the need for a massive front-mounted radiator or a complex transmission tunnel, the 2026 concept cars are maximizing dash-to-axle ratios, creating interior volumes that were previously only possible in full-sized vans, all within the footprint of a compact sedan. Consider the shift in aerodynamics. In the US, where highway speeds often hover around 70 to 80 miles per hour, aerodynamic drag is the enemy of range. The 2026 concepts are pushing the limits of the teardrop design language. We are seeing drag coefficients C/D dropping below 0.19, a feat achieved through active aero components. Imagine a car that physically changes its shape as you merge onto the highway, rear spoilers that extend to manage the wake, and wheel covers that seal shut to eliminate turbulence. These are not just aesthetic choices. They are mathematical necessities to ensure that the massive American distances can be covered on a single charge. Furthermore, the 2026 landscape is defined by the integration of the digital twin. Automakers are no longer just selling you a physical object. They are providing an evolving digital ecosystem. Through high-bandwidth 6G connectivity, these concept cars are constantly communicating with the smart infrastructure of American cities. This is a crucial step in solving the last-mile problem. Historical trends in urban planning suggest that as cities become more crowded, the traditional model of parking a 4,000-pound vehicle in a downtown lot becomes unsustainable. The 2026 concepts address this by being divisible. We are seeing designs where a primary vehicle can deploy smaller, micromobility pods for the final leg of a journey into a congested city center. The depth of this transition cannot be overstated. We are moving away from horsepower as the primary metric of a car's worth and moving toward, tops, tera operations per second. The 2026 concept car is a supercomputer on wheels, utilizing neural processing units to predict road conditions before the human eye could even register a hazard. This shift in focus is a response to the American safety crisis. With traffic fatalities hitting record highs in the early 2020s, the 2026 concepts are being marketed as zero-collision environments. By utilizing a suite of LiDAR, radar, and high-resolution cameras, these vehicles create a 360-degree safety cocoon that operates with a latency of less than 10 milliseconds. As we move through this 10-part masterclass, we will examine the specific manufacturers leading this charge, from the legacy giants in Detroit who are reinventing their heritage brands, to the Silicon Valley startups that are treating the car as a wearable device. We will look at how the front trunk is being turned into a mobile delivery hub, how windows are being replaced by high-definition transparent OLED screens, and how the very materials inside the car are being grown in labs rather than harvested from nature. The 2026 concept car is the ultimate intersection of art, physics, and data science. It is a glimpse into a future where the United States is not just building cars, but is engineering a new way of living. We are moving from a society that is car-dependent to one that is mobility-empowered. This isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about what you become during the transition. Stick with us as we peel back the layers of the most sophisticated machines ever designed by human hands. To understand the magnitude of the shift occurring in 2026, we have to look at the skin of these machines. For over a century, the exterior of an American car was a static cage of steel and glass, designed primarily to survive a crash and look good in a showroom. But as we move into the second half of this decade, the exterior has become a living, breathing interface. The 2026 concept cycle has introduced us to the idea of the morphing silhouette. Imagine Alex, a typical commuter in the sprawling outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. It is a blistering July afternoon in 2026. As Alex approaches his vehicle, he is not just looking at a car. He is looking at a highly specialized atmospheric processor. The vehicle does not have a traditional paint job. Instead, it utilizes a biopolymer wrap embedded with microspheres that change color based on thermal requirements. In the Arizona heat, the car shifts from a deep obsidian to a reflective, pearlescent white to deflect solar radiation, reducing the energy load required to cool the cabin by nearly 30%. This is one of the many potential outcomes of the industry's pivot toward extreme thermal efficiency. Historical trends in automotive design always prioritized the internal combustion engine's need for air. Huge front grills were necessary to feed radiators. But in 2026, the grill is dead. In its place, we see the rise of the digital face. Take a look at the latest concept from the leading American EV innovators. The entire front fascia is now a seamless, high-definition LED array protected by a layer of transparent ceramic. This allows the car to communicate. When Alex's car detects a pedestrian waiting to cross at a busy intersection in downtown Austin, it doesn't just stop. It projects a high-contrast crosswalk onto the pavement in front of it and displays a friendly message on its nose, signaling to the human that it is safe to proceed. This is the implementation of vehicle-to-everything or V2X communication, where the car acts as a safety beacon for the entire urban ecosystem. But the real magic happens when Alex hits the open highway. This is where the physics of 2026 design truly shine. At speeds above 55 miles per hour, the air becomes a physical wall. To overcome this, 2026 concept cars utilize active shape memory alloys. These are materials that can change their physical state when an electric current is applied. As Alex merges onto the I-10, his vehicle literally lengthens. The rear diffuser extends by 6 inches, and the side skirts drop closer to the asphalt to seal the underbody airflow. The wheels, which appear to be solid discs for maximum aero efficiency, feature active shutters that open only when the regenerative braking system needs a burst of cooling air. We are seeing drag coefficients reach levels we once thought impossible for production intent vehicles. To put this into perspective, the mathematical impact is massive. The drag force F d acting on a vehicle is calculated as F d equals 2 1 rho v 2 c d, where rho is the air density, v is the velocity, c d is the drag coefficient, and a is the frontal area. By utilizing morphing surfaces to drop the c d from a traditional 0.28 to a conceptual 0.18, manufacturers are effectively increasing highway range by over 20% without adding a single kilogram of battery weight. This leads us to the radical evolution of materials. In 2026, we are seeing a move away from the carbon fiber at all costs mentality of the early 2020s. Case studies from the latest sustainability summits in Detroit show that the industry is pivoting toward biocomposites. We are seeing concept chassis reinforced with lab-grown flax fibers and hemp-based resins that are lighter than aluminum, but possess superior vibration dampening qualities. These materials are not just eco-friendly, they change the acoustic profile of the car. Inside a 2026 concept, the silence is total. The vibrations of the road are absorbed by the organic structure of the frame itself. This is a crucial part of the deep dive because it explains why these cars feel different. They don't rattle or hum like the cars of 2024. They feel like a solid, singular block of matter moving through space. Another high-stakes story in the 2026 exterior landscape is the disappearance of the side mirror. For years, U.S. regulation stood in the way of this change, but the current legislative environment has finally caught up with the technology. In 2026 concepts, the mirrors are replaced by high dynamic range cameras tucked into the A-pillars. These cameras feed into interior displays that use artificial intelligence to highlight potential hazards. If a cyclist is in the blind spot, the interior display doesn't just show the cyclist. It pulses a soft red aura around them. This is part of the shift toward cognitive offloading. The car is doing the work of the human eye, but with a 360-degree field of vision and zero blind spots. Let us look at the case study of the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado EV concept evolution. For the American market, the truck is king. But how do you make a massive boxy pickup aerodynamic enough for a 500-mile range? The answer lies in the flow-through hood. The 2026 concept utilizes a massive air duct that takes high-pressure air from the front of the truck and channels it through the hood and over the roof, effectively tricking the air into thinking the truck is half as tall as it actually is. This isn't just a styling cue. It is a fundamental re-engineering of how a utility vehicle interacts with the atmosphere. Furthermore, the cargo beds are now equipped with integrated solar tonneau covers. While early solar tech was inefficient, the 2026 multi-junction cells can add up to 20 miles of range per day, just by sitting in a sunny parking lot in Florida or Southern California. Potential outcomes suggest that for the average urban truck owner, the need to plug into a charger could be reduced to once every 2 weeks. The lighting technology has also undergone a masterclass in transformation. We have moved past simple matrix LED headlights. The 2026 concepts are using digital light synthesis. Each headlight contains over 1 million micromirrors that can project complex data directly onto the road. If the car's sensors detect ice on a bridge ahead, it doesn't just tell the driver. It projects an ice crystal icon onto the lane to warn other non-connected vehicles behind it. The taillights are no longer static red bars. They are organic OLED panels that can change their intensity and pattern based on the urgency of the braking event. A hard emergency stop causes the entire rear of the car to pulse in a high-frequency strobe that has been historically shown to reduce rear-end collisions by over 40%. Imagine the level of detail required to maintain this exterior. These are not cars you take through a traditional gas station car wash. The 2026 concept cycle introduces self-healing clear coats. These are polymers that, when exposed to the heat of the sun, can flow back into microscopic scratches and swirls, keeping the car looking brand new for years. This solves the problem of aesthetic degradation that plagues modern vehicles. But as we admire the gleaming, shape-shifting exterior of these 2026 marvels, we have to ask ourselves a vital question. What happens when you actually step inside? The exterior is just the shell. The real revolution, the one that is going to change your daily life, is happening behind those self-presenting doors. As the doors swing open on a 2026 concept, they don't just reveal a cabin. They reveal a portal to a different version of your day. We are talking about an interior that has no steering wheel, no pedals, and no traditional dashboard. How does a human interact with a machine that has decided it no longer needs a pilot? And more importantly, what are you going to do with all that extra time when your car takes over the most dangerous task you perform every day? The answers lie in the cabin architecture of 2026, and they are more controversial than you can possibly imagine. Step inside the cabin of a 2026 concept car, and the first thing you will notice is the total absence of the tyranny of the driver-centric layout. For over a century, the interior of a car was designed around one person, the driver. Every screen, every button, and every ergonomic curve was angled toward that front left seat. But in 2026, we are witnessing the death of the dashboard. Imagine Sarah, a project manager in Chicago. In 2024, Sarah spent her commute hunched over a steering wheel, eyes strained on the brake lights of the SUV ahead of her. Fast forward to 2026, and Sarah's concept commuter vehicle resembles a high-end boutique lounge more than a piece of machinery. There is no steering column to cramp her legs. There are no pedals to tether her to a single position. Instead, the floor is perfectly flat, covered in a sustainable high-durability woven textile that feels more like a living room rug than automotive carpeting. This architectural shift is made possible by the total integration of steer-by-wire and brake-by-wire systems. In historical trends, the mechanical connection between the driver and the wheels was a safety requirement. However, by 2026, triple redundant electronic systems have proven to be more reliable in case studies than mechanical linkages that can fail during high-impact collisions. Because there is no physical shaft connecting the interior to the front axle, the entire front of the cabin has been reclaimed. Designers are calling this the Great Interior Expansion. In Sarah's car, the space where a dashboard used to be is now occupied by a massive 55-inch pillar-to-pillar transparent OLED display. When the car is in motion, this screen provides a low-distraction augmented reality overlay of the road. When parked or in full autonomous mode, it becomes a cinematic workstation. Let us look at the mathematics of this space. Traditional internal combustion vehicles required a significant portion of the interior volume for the transmission tunnel and firewall. By moving to a dedicated electric vehicle platform, or a skateboard chassis, manufacturers in 2026 have increased usable cabin volume by nearly 40% in the same exterior footprint. This is the equivalent of moving from a cramped studio apartment to a spacious one-bedroom without changing the zip code. This allows for what the industry calls dynamic seating. In 2026 concepts, seats are no longer bolted to the floor in fixed rows. They are mounted on a universal rail system. Sarah can rotate her seat 180 degrees to face the rear passengers, creating a face-to-face social environment, while the vehicle navigates the Eisenhower Expressway autonomously. The seats themselves have undergone a masterclass in biomechanical engineering. In previous decades, a car seat was a passive object. In 2026, the seat is an active health monitoring device. These concepts utilize piezoelectric sensors embedded in the fabric to monitor Sarah's heart rate, respiratory rhythm, and even her posture. If the vehicle's AI detects that Sarah is reaching a high level of stress during a particularly complex navigation merge, the seat can automatically adjust its lumbar support and initiate a localized, therapeutic massage to lower her cortisol levels. Case studies from the 2025 health tech integration trials suggest that this type of proactive environment can reduce driver fatigue-related incidents by nearly 25%. Now, let us address the controversy of the hidden control. One of the most radical potential outcomes we see in 2026 is the disappearance of physical interfaces. There are no volume knobs. There are no climate toggles. Everything is controlled through a combination of haptic air gestures and voice command. Imagine Sarah simply waving her hand in the air to lower the temperature or pointing at a spot on the window to get information about a nearby landmark. This is achieved through ultra-wideband radar sensors that can track hand movements with sub-millimeter precision. While this creates a minimalist Zen-like aesthetic, it also raises the stakes for user experience design. If the system fails to recognize a gesture, the user is left with a sleek but unresponsive machine. To mitigate this, 2026 concepts utilize multimodal redundancy, where the car confirms actions through subtle pulses of ultrasonic waves directed at Sarah's fingertips, giving her the sensation of touching a button that isn't actually there. The materials inside these 2026 cabins represent a deep dive into the future of luxury. We are seeing a complete rejection of animal hides in favor of mycelium-based leathers and recycled ocean plastics that have been refined into high-grade microfibers. These materials are not just chosen for their sustainability, they are chosen for their ability to be programmed. In several 2026 concept interiors, the door panels themselves are interactive. Using a technology called in-mold electronics, the fabric of the door can display glowing patterns or serve as a touch-sensitive interface for secondary functions. Sarah doesn't reach for a handle. She touches a haptic zone on the fabric, and the door glides open on an electromagnetic hinge. Another massive leap in 2026 is the concept of the atmospheric cabin. Historical trends in car design focused on the view out the window, but in 2026, the windows themselves are part of the entertainment. Through the use of suspended particle device glass, Sarah can instantly change the transparency of every window in the car. If she wants to sleep while the car drives her from New York to Washington, D.C., she can turn the glass completely opaque, blocking out 99.9% of external light. Alternatively, the windows can act as AR displays, labeling the constellations in the night sky or providing historical data about the cities she is passing through. The climate control system has also been reimagined as a personal thermal bubble. Rather than blowing large volumes of air throughout the entire cabin, which is energy inefficient, 2026 concepts use radiant heating and cooling panels integrated into the seats and surfaces. This allows for extreme personalization. While Sarah might want her seat at a cool 68 degrees, her passenger can have their specific zone heated to 74 degrees, with no mixing of air between the two. This precision control is calculated to reduce the energy consumption of the HVAC system by up to 50%, directly contributing to the vehicle's overall range and efficiency. But as we look at these incredible advancements in comfort and technology, we have to look at the darker side of the data. Every sensor monitoring Sarah's heart rate, every camera tracking her eye movement to ensure she is paying attention to the road, and every microphone listening for her voice commands is generating a massive amount of personal data. In 2026, the car knows more about you than your smartphone does. It knows your moods, your routines, and your physical health. The 2026 concept cycle is forcing a national conversation in the United States about data sovereignty. Who owns the biometric data generated by your car seat? Is it you? Or is it the manufacturer who provides the software? As we move deeper into this masterclass, the interior becomes just one piece of a much larger puzzle. While the cabin is designed to keep you comfortable and productive, the engine room, or what used to be the engine room, is where the real war for the future of U.S. driving is being fought. We are talking about the end of the lithium-ion era, and the birth of a new form of energy that could make range anxiety a historical footnote. What happens when your car can charge from 10 to 80% in the time it takes to order a coffee? And more importantly, how are these machines going to communicate with a power grid that is already under immense pressure? The answers lie in the 2026 powertrain revolution, and the data suggests we are on the verge of a breakthrough that will change the American landscape forever. The 2026 powertrain revolution is not just about moving from gasoline to electricity. It is about the total optimization of energy density and the end of the charging bottleneck. To understand why this year is a watershed moment, we must examine the specific case studies of solid-state battery integration that have moved from the laboratory to the concept floor. For the last decade, the United States automotive market has been held back by the limitations of liquid electrolyte lithium-ion batteries. These cells, while revolutionary in their time, suffered from thermal runaway risks and a plateau in energy density that made 500-mile ranges difficult to achieve without adding massive, heavy battery packs. In 2026, the concept cars being unveiled by major American manufacturers are showcasing the potential outcomes of a transition to solid-state technology, SSB. Imagine David, a contractor in Denver, who needs a vehicle that can handle both the freezing temperatures of the Rockies and the long hauls across the plains. In historical trends, cold weather was the Achilles heel of the electric vehicle, with range dropping by as much as 40% in sub-zero temperatures because liquid electrolytes become sluggish and require significant energy for heating. David's 2026 concept truck, however, utilizes a sulfide-based solid electrolyte. Because there is no liquid to freeze or overheat, the thermal operating window is vastly expanded. The data from early 2026 trials suggests that these solid-state packs maintain over 90% of their efficiency, even in extreme cold. This represents a fundamental shift in the American perception of EV reliability. The depth of this breakthrough lies in the mathematics of energy density. Traditional cells were topping out at around 250 to 300 watt-hours per kilogram. The 2026 concepts are pushing into the 500 watt-hours per kilogram range. This is achieved through the use of lithium metal anodes instead of the traditional graphite. By removing the weight of the liquid electrolyte and the heavy separators, these cars are essentially carrying twice the energy in half the space. For a vehicle like the 2026 concepts, this translates to a chassis that is much thinner, allowing for a lower center of gravity and much more interior legroom. The weight reduction also has a cascading effect on the suspension and braking systems. A lighter car requires less energy to move, which further increases range in a virtuous cycle of efficiency. But energy storage is only half of the story. The other half is the 800-volt and 1,200-volt charging architectures that are becoming standard in the 2026 concept cycle. Imagine if you could pull into a charging station along the I-95, and by the time you walked inside to grab a bottle of water and use the restroom, your car had added 300 miles of range. This is the goal of the Megawatt Charging System, MCS, being integrated into 2026 heavy-duty and light truck concepts. By utilizing silicon carbide (SiC) inverters, these cars can handle massive currents with minimal heat loss. Historical trends showed that charging speeds were often limited by the heat generated in the cable and the battery terminals. In 2026, we see concepts with active liquid-cooled charging ports that can pull in energy at rates exceeding 400 kilowatts. Let us dive deeper into the concept of vehicle-to-grid (V2G) and vehicle-to-home (V2H) integration. In 2026, your car is no longer just a consumer of energy. It is a critical component of the United States energy infrastructure. Consider a scenario in a coastal city like Miami during a peak summer heat wave. The local power grid is under immense strain as millions of air conditioning units work at full capacity. A fleet of 2026 concept vehicles, parked and connected to smart chargers, can act as a massive distributed battery for the city. Through bidirectional charging, these cars can feed energy back into the grid during peak hours to prevent brownouts, and then recharge themselves in the middle of the night when wind and solar power are abundant and cheap. This is not a theoretical model. Case studies from pilot programs in California and New York have shown that V2G integration can significantly stabilize local microgrids. The 2026 concepts are also exploring the potential outcomes of wireless dynamic charging. Imagine a future where you never have to plug in your car at all. Several 2026 prototypes feature induction coils built into the undercarriage. As these cars drive over specially equipped sections of the highway, sections currently being tested in states like Michigan and Indiana, they pick up a continuous charge from the road itself. This technology, known as electrified roadways, uses electromagnetic induction to transfer power from coils buried in the asphalt to the vehicle. While the initial infrastructure costs are high, the long-term data suggests that this could eventually allow for smaller, lighter battery packs because the car is constantly being topped up while in motion. We must also examine the rise of hydrogen-electric hybrids in the 2026 concept space. While battery electric vehicles are winning the passenger car race, the 2026 heavy-duty concepts, designed for the American trucking industry, are looking at a dual-fuel approach. These vehicles use a smaller solid-state battery for urban driving and a high-efficiency hydrogen fuel cell for long-range highway cruising. The only emission is pure water vapor. The 2026 prototypes from major U.S. truck manufacturers are demonstrating that hydrogen can be stored in carbon fiber tanks at pressures of 700 bar, providing a range of over 800 miles with a 5-minute refueling time. This solves the weight-to-range problem that has historically plagued long-haul electric trucking. The motor technology itself has reached a level of sophistication that borders on the incredible. In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of axial flux motors. Unlike the traditional radial flux motors found in most early EVs, axial flux motors are shaped like a pancake rather than a cylinder. They provide significantly higher torque density. In a 2026 performance concept, this means the motors can be integrated directly into the wheel hubs. This is called in-wheel motor technology. By removing the need for drive shafts and differentials, each wheel can be controlled independently with microsecond precision. This allows for torque vectoring that makes a heavy SUV feel as nimble as a sports car. If the car's sensors detect a patch of black ice under the rear right wheel, it can instantly cut power to that wheel, while increasing it on the others to maintain perfect stability. As we look at the sheer power and efficiency of these 2026 powertrains, we have to consider the environmental and ethical cost of the materials. The 2026 concept cycle is emphasizing cobalt-free and nickel-free chemistries. By moving toward lithium iron phosphate, LFP, and sodium-ion batteries for entry-level models, manufacturers are reducing their reliance on volatile global supply chains. Sodium-ion in particular is a game-changer for the US market because sodium is abundant and inexpensive. While it has slightly lower energy density than lithium, the potential outcomes for affordable mass-market 2026 concepts are immense. These advancements in the engine room are the silent heroes of the 2026 automotive world. They are the reason we can finally envision a future where the 1,000-mile road trip is as easy as it was in the heyday of the gasoline era, but without the carbon footprint. But a powerful motor and a massive battery are useless if the car doesn't know where it's going or how to get there safely. This leads us to the most complex and perhaps the most frightening part of the 2026 deep dive: the brain. We are entering the era of the Level 5 autonomous processor, a system so advanced it can navigate a blinding snowstorm in Manhattan or a chaotic construction zone in Los Angeles without a single human input. How does the car think? How does it make life and death decisions in a split second? And what happens to the concept of human freedom when the machine is always in control? The neural networks of 2026 are about to take us into a world where the line between passenger and pilot is blurred forever. To understand the central nervous system of a 2026 concept car, we must stop thinking of the vehicle as a machine that reacts to inputs and start seeing it as a predictive entity. In the earlier part of this decade, autonomous driving was largely a game of reaction, detecting an obstacle and then calculating a path around it. In 2026, the brain of the vehicle has transitioned into a large world model. These are neural networks trained on petabytes of driving data that allow the car to understand the underlying physics and social norms of the road. It doesn't just see a ball rolling into the street. It understands the high probability that a child will follow it and begins to modulate the regenerative braking system before the child even appears. This is the era of intent prediction, and it is powered by a level of silicon performance that was relegated to supercomputer labs just 5 years ago. The hardware enabling this cognitive leap is the 2026 sensor suite. We have moved past the era of the spinning bucket LiDAR. The latest concepts utilize solid-state frequency-modulated continuous wave (FMCW) LiDAR. Unlike older time-of-flight systems, FMCW uses a 1,550 nanometers laser that allows the car to measure not just the distance of an object, but its instantaneous velocity with sub-millimeter precision. This data is then fused with 4D imaging radar that can see through heavy fog, rain, and even around corners by analyzing how radio waves bounce off stationary objects like buildings. Imagine Chloe, a professional living in the dense, rain-slick streets of Seattle in 2026. As she sits in her concept pod, the vehicle is processing a 360-degree point cloud consisting of over 10 million points per second. Even in a Pacific Northwest downpour that would blind a human driver, Chloe's car has a digital map of the environment that is as clear as high noon. This massive influx of data requires an unprecedented amount of compute power. The 2026 concepts are built around centralized architectures using chips like the NVIDIA Drive Thor or Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon Ride platforms, which deliver over 2,000 TOPS, tera operations per second. To put that in perspective, historical trends show that the early autonomous prototypes of 2020 were lucky to hit 200 TOPS. This tenfold increase allows for what engineers call end-to-end neural driving. Instead of having separate programs for lane keeping and traffic light recognition, a single massive neural network processes all sensor data and directly outputs the steering, braking, and acceleration commands. This reduces latency to almost zero, creating a driving experience that feels fluid and organic, rather than the jerky, robotic movements of early self-driving cars. Let us explore a case study of how this brain handles an edge case, the nightmare scenario for any autonomous system. Imagine Chloe's car is navigating a chaotic construction zone on the I-5. The lane markings are stripped, there are temporary concrete barriers that don't match the GPS map, and a human flagger is using hand signals that aren't in any standard manual. In the past, this would have triggered a disengagement, forcing Chloe to take over. But in 2026, the vehicle utilizes vision language models. It can literally see the flagger, interpret the context of their gestures, and even read the handwritten signs on the back of a utility truck. The car's brain treats the situation as a puzzle to be solved through logic and social cues, not just geometric calculations. It uses federated learning to cross-reference how other vehicles in the fleet navigated this specific spot 5 minutes ago. updating its local model in real time without ever needing to send Chloe's personal data to a central cloud. This brings us to the ethical framework of the 2026 machine. The trolley problem, the question of how an AI should choose between two unavoidable accidents, has moved from a philosophical debate to a firmware requirement. The United States National Highway Traffic Safety Administration (NHTSA) has mandated that all 2026 autonomous concepts must adhere to a standardized ethical decision matrix. This matrix is not about placing a value on human life, but about minimizing total kinetic energy transfer in any collision. The car's brain is constantly running thousands of simulations per second, known as Monte Carlo tree searches, to find the path that results in the lowest possible probability of injury. This is a potential outcome of a world where the car is a more moral actor than the human. Historical trends in U.S. traffic data show that 94% of accidents are caused by human error, usually related to distraction or intoxication. By removing the human from the loop, 2026 concepts are aiming for a 99% reduction in multi-vehicle collisions. However, the brain isn't just looking outward, it is also looking inward. The 2026 concept cycle features advanced driver or passenger monitoring systems, high-resolution infrared cameras inside the cabin use gaze tracking and effective computing to understand Chloe's state of mind. If the AI detects that Chloe is feeling motion sick from looking at her screen while the car maneuvers through tight turns, it will automatically adjust the suspension stiffness and broaden the turn radii to minimize lateral g-forces. If it detects she has fallen asleep, it transitions into a protective mode, dimming the interior lights and ensuring the route is optimized for smoothness rather than speed. This is the ultimate expression of the car as a caregiver. But this level of intelligence comes with a massive requirement for connectivity, known as V2X, Vehicle to Everything. In 2026, the car is in a constant, high-speed dialogue with the city around it. As Chloe approaches a traffic light, the light tells the car exactly how many seconds are left on the green cycle. This allows the car to calculate the perfect approach speed so it never has to come to a full stop, a concept known as green wave optimization. This doesn't just save time, it saves a massive amount of energy. Case studies from early V2X rollouts in cities like Las Vegas show that this can improve urban fuel and energy efficiency by over 15%. The car can also talk to the car 3 vehicles ahead. If that car hits a deep pothole or detects a patch of ice, it broadcasts a warning to every vehicle behind it via a 5.9 GHz dedicated short-range communication band. The depth of this integration leads to the most controversial aspect of the 2026 brain: data sovereignty and the black box. Every millisecond of Chloe's journey is being recorded in a high-fidelity digital twin of the environment. In the event of any incident, this data is immutable and transparent to investigators. But who owns this map of Chloe's life? In 2026, the concept of privacy has been redefined. The car knows where you go, who you travel with, and how your body reacts to the journey. U.S. lawmakers are currently debating the Personal Mobility Data Act, which would give users the right to delete their driving history. But manufacturers argue that this data is essential for the continuous improvement of the safety algorithms. As we look at this incredibly sophisticated, hyper-connected brain, we have to realize that it changes the very nature of vehicle ownership. If the car is this smart, if it can maintain itself, update itself, and even earn money as an autonomous taxi while you sleep, do you really need to own it at all? The 2026 concept cycle is not just giving us a new way to drive. It is giving us a new way to pay for mobility. We are about to enter the world of the automotive subscription economy, where the physical car is free, but the features you use every day come with a price tag. In the next part, we will dive into the shocking financial models of 2026, from the pay-per-mile performance tiers to the advertisements that might just pay for your entire commute. How much of your freedom are you willing to trade for a free ride? The economics of 2026 driving are more complex than the engineering itself. The economics of 2026 driving have shifted so radically that the very concept of a manufacturer's suggested retail price is becoming a relic of the past. For over a century, the financial transaction of getting a car was simple. You saved a down payment, you took out a loan, and you paid for a physical object that depreciated the moment you drove it off the lot. But in 2026, we have entered the era of the mobility asset. When you look at the latest concepts from the Big Three in Detroit or the new tech-first challengers from Silicon Valley, you aren't looking at a product you own. You are looking at a platform you license. This is the hardware as a service model, and it is the most significant economic disruption in the history of the United States automotive sector. Imagine Marcus, a freelance graphic designer living in the bustling Midtown area of Atlanta. It is October 2026. Marcus does not have a car payment in the traditional sense. Instead, he has a mobility subscription. Marcus's concept vehicle, a sleek, minimalist electric pod designed for urban agility, actually had a base production cost that was surprisingly low. This is because the manufacturer has stripped away the profit margin on the physical hardware, choosing instead to bank on the lifetime value of the software services Marcus will consume over the next 5 years. Historical trends in the smartphone industry have finally fully colonized the automotive world. Marcus pays a base monthly fee of $299, which grants him access to the vehicle and a standard range of 250 miles. But here is where the deep dive into 2026 economics gets fascinating. On a Friday afternoon, Marcus decides he wants to drive up to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a weekend of hiking. His standard urban pod is set to a restricted 150 horsepower mode to preserve battery health and public safety in the city. As he hits the outskirts of the Atlanta sprawl and merges onto I-75, a notification appears on his transparent augmented reality windshield. For a one-time fee of $15, the car offers to unlock the performance tier for the next 48 hours. This software update instantly recalibrates the dual-motor inverters, boosting his output to 350 horsepower and sharpening the adaptive air suspension for the mountain curves ahead. This is not a mechanical change. The hardware was always capable of this performance, but it was locked behind a digital paywall. Case studies from early 2026 trials show that this tiered performance model allows manufacturers to produce a single hardware specification while catering to multiple price points, drastically reducing manufacturing complexity and increasing profit margins through high-margin digital upsells. But the 2026 economic model goes even deeper than performance on demand. We are seeing the rise of the sponsored commute. Imagine if your car payment could be subsidized by your attention. In Marcus's world, he can opt into the ad-supported mobility tier. As his vehicle navigates the heavy Atlanta traffic autonomously, the interior OLED panels display curated, non-intrusive advertisements for local businesses along his route. If Marcus agrees to stop at a specific coffee shop suggested by the car's AI, the cost of his morning commute is credited back to his account. Potential outcomes of this model suggest that for lower-income commuters in the United States, the cost of personal mobility could drop to near zero, provided they are willing to participate in the attention economy. This is a high-stakes shift in how we value our time and privacy. The car is no longer just a cost center. It is a data-generating node that participates in a complex, multi-sided marketplace. Let us look at the data regarding vehicle utilization. For decades, the average American car sat idle for 95% of its life, taking up valuable real estate in driveways and parking garages. The 2026 concept cycle addresses this inefficiency through fractional ownership and autonomous fleet participation. Marcus's car is part of a decentralized network. While he is at his studio working, his car does not sit in a $20 an hour parking deck. Instead, it enters the public fleet. Using its Level 5 autonomous capabilities, the car spends its afternoon performing high-efficiency grocery deliveries or acting as a short-haul shuttle for other subscribers in the neighborhood. The revenue generated by the car during these hours is split between Marcus and the manufacturer. In this scenario, the car is effectively a side hustle on wheels. Historical trends in the gig economy have evolved into a system where the asset itself does the work, removing the human labor element and creating a passive income stream for the primary subscriber. This leads us to the transformation of automotive insurance. In 2026, the concept of a flat monthly insurance premium is dead. Insurance is now hyper-individualized and calculated in real time, based on millions of data points. This is known as telematics-based risk assessment. Every time Marcus's vehicle takes a turn too sharply, or every time the internal cameras detect that he is looking at his phone instead of the road while in manual mode, his risk score is updated. Conversely, when the car is in full autonomous mode, the insurance liability shifts from Marcus to the software provider. This has created a massive legal and financial battleground in the US. If a 2026 concept car is involved in an incident while the AI is in control, the manufacturer's massive liability pool covers the costs. This shift is a potential outcome of the industry's push for total autonomy. If they want you to trust the machine, they have to be willing to insure it. Case studies from the 2025 pilot programs in Phoenix show that this shift in liability has led to a 40% reduction in personal insurance costs for early adopters of autonomous technology. The 2026 deep dive also reveals the emergence of the in-car app store. We are seeing concepts where the interior environment can be completely themed by third-party developers. Imagine downloading a wellness pack from a major health brand. For a $5 monthly subscription, your car's interior lighting, ambient soundscape, and scent diffusers are synchronized to lower your heart rate, and guided meditation sessions are integrated into your commute. Or perhaps you purchase a productivity suite that turns your car into a secure, high-bandwidth mobile office, complete with specialized noise-canceling zones that allow you to take confidential calls, even if there are other passengers in the vehicle. The car is becoming a modular space where the physical shell is just the beginning of the customization. However, this economic shift raises significant questions about the digital divide in the United States. If the best safety features, the fastest charging speeds, and the most efficient routes are locked behind premium subscription tiers, does personal safety become a luxury good? The 2026 concepts are pushing us toward a world where your experience on the road is directly tied to your monthly subscription level. A gold tier subscriber might get priority access to high-speed induction charging lanes, while a basic tier user has to wait in a longer queue. The mathematical optimization of the road network in 2026 is a triumph of engineering, but the social implications are still being debated in town halls across the country. As we examine these complex financial webs, we realize that the 2026 concept car is the ultimate Trojan horse for the service economy. It promises freedom and convenience, but it tethers the user to a permanent cycle of microtransactions and data sharing. But there is one final piece of the 2026 puzzle that makes all of this possible. None of these economic models work without a massive, invisible infrastructure that supports them. We are talking about the transformation of American cities themselves, from the way we build our roads to the way we design our homes. The car of 2026 is not an island. It is a gear in a much larger machine. In the next part, we are going to look at the urban ecosystem, how the 2026 concepts are literally reshaping the geography of the United States. What happens to the suburbs when the commute no longer sucks? And what happens to the gas station when every parking spot is a charger? The physical world is catching up to the digital one, and the results are going to change your neighborhood forever. The transformation of the American neighborhood in 2026 is perhaps the most visible potential outcome of the concept car revolution. For nearly a century, United States urban planning was dictated by the requirements of the internal combustion engine. Our houses were built with massive garages that often occupied the most valuable street-facing real estate. Our cities were paved over with vast asphalt heat islands known as parking lots. But as we look at the 2026 concept landscape, we see a radical decoupling of the vehicle from the fixed parking spot. This is the era of the invisible infrastructure. Imagine James, a resident of a newly redeveloped district in Columbus, Ohio. In 2026, James's neighborhood looks fundamentally different than it did just 5 years ago. Because his concept vehicle is fully autonomous and part of a shared mobility network, James no longer needs a two-car garage. In this new urban reality, the garage has been reclaimed as a home office, a gym, or an accessory dwelling unit. This shift is a direct response to the housing density crisis in the United States. Historical trends in zoning laws are being rewritten to accommodate the fact that cars no longer need to sleep where we sleep. When James is done with his day, his car doesn't sit idle in his driveway. It retracts its side mirrors, optimizes its battery cooling, and heads to a peripheral charging hub located on the outskirts of the city where land is cheaper and energy is managed by industrial-scale solar arrays. This is a masterclass in spatial optimization. By removing the need for street parking, James's city has been able to widen sidewalks, plant thousands of carbon sequestering trees, and create dedicated lanes for micromobility pods and cyclists. The 2026 concept car is not just a vehicle. It is a catalyst for the greening of the American concrete jungle. The data supporting this transition is staggering. Case studies from cities like Seattle and San Francisco, which began prioritizing autonomous-ready infrastructure in 2024, show that repurposing just 20% of surface parking can lead to a significant reduction in the urban heat island effect. In these areas, the ambient temperature has dropped by as much as 3 degrees Celsius during peak summer months. Furthermore, the 2026 concept cycle introduces the curbside micro-hub. Instead of the traditional gas station, which is rapidly becoming a relic of the fossil fuel era, we are seeing the rise of modular robotic charging docks integrated into the curb itself. James doesn't look for a gas station. His car identifies a high-speed induction pad embedded in the pavement while he is grabbing lunch. The transaction is handled via a secure blockchain handshake between the car and the city's smart grid, with zero human intervention required. But what happens to the long-distance infrastructure of the United States? The iconic American road trip is being reinvented by the 2026 concept of the highway train. On major interstate arteries like the I-80 or the I-95, concept vehicles are utilizing platooning technology. Through high-speed V2V vehicle-to-vehicle links, a line of 10 or 15 concept cars can sync their acceleration and braking to within milliseconds, maintaining a following distance of only 3 feet at 75 miles per hour. This drastically reduces aerodynamic drag for the entire line, much like a professional cycling peloton. The leading vehicle, often a high-performance long-range concept, breaks the wind, while the following vehicles experience a reduction in energy consumption of up to 25%. This is a potential outcome that effectively turns the American highway system into a high-speed, flexible rail network without the need for laying a single mile of new track. Let us look at the case study of the 2026 Smart Interchange. In traditional driving, the highway off-ramp is a point of high friction and frequent accidents. In the 2026 vision, the interchange is a digital choreographed dance. As James's car approaches a complex multi-level stack in Atlanta, it receives a packet of data from the Regional Traffic Control AI. The car is assigned a specific microslot in the flow of traffic. There are no stop signs or traffic lights in this conceptual future. Instead, cars merge and cross paths at high speeds with mathematical precision, their paths calculated to ensure they never come within a safety buffer of one another. This eliminates the stop-and-go wave effect that causes the majority of American traffic jams. Historical trends show that human reaction time, which averages about 250 milliseconds, is the primary cause of traffic congestion. The 2026 concept processors operate with a latency of less than 5 milliseconds, meaning traffic flows like a liquid, rather than a series of stuttering mechanical parts. The impact on the American suburb is equally profound. For decades, the suburb was a place of isolation, defined by the long, grueling commute. In 2026, the concept of the mobile third space changes the geography of work. Since the car is now a high-speed, productive office, the distance between home and the city center is no longer measured in stress, but in billable hours or relaxation. Imagine a scenario where the 2026 concept allows you to live in the rural beauty of the Appalachian foothills while working for a firm in Washington, D.C. The car becomes a bridge that allows for a higher quality of life without sacrificing career opportunities. This is causing a demographic shift in the United States, as people move away from overcrowded urban cores toward areas with more natural beauty, knowing their 2026 mobility solution will handle the logistics of the journey. However, we must address the high-stakes challenge of infrastructure equity. As cities transform to support these 2026 concepts, there is a significant risk of creating a two-tier society. In wealthy tech hubs, the roads are smooth, the 6G sensors are ubiquitous, and the charging is seamless. But in rural America or underserved urban districts, the infrastructure may still be stuck in 2015. Several 2026 concepts are specifically designed to bridge this gap. We are seeing ruggedized autonomous platforms that don't rely on perfect road markings or constant cloud connectivity. These vehicles use onboard SLAM, simultaneous localization and mapping, algorithms to navigate unpaved roads in areas with zero cellular signal. They are the 2026 equivalent of the bush plane, essential lifelines for the millions of Americans who live outside the smart city bubble. The gas station itself is undergoing a masterclass in rebranding. In 2026, the concept of the energy lounge is replacing the oily, fluorescent-lit stations of the past. These are destination hubs where travelers can spend 30 minutes while their vehicle undergoes a high-voltage solid-state refresh. These lounges feature high-speed fiber-optic workstations, gourmet dining, and even microgyms. The business model has shifted from selling gallons of fuel at thin margins to selling high-value experiences to a captive audience. Case studies from early 2026 rollouts by major energy companies show that the average revenue per visitor has tripled compared to the traditional gas station model. The vehicle is the reason you are there, but the ecosystem is what keeps you coming back. As the physical world reconfigures itself around the 2026 concept car, we are witnessing the birth of the truly synchronized society. The car, the home, and the city are becoming a single integrated circuit. But there is one final frontier for the 2026 concept cycle that we haven't touched upon yet. While we have explored the road, the city, and the economy, we haven't looked at the most personal part of the journey, the interface between the human mind and the machine. In 2026, the steering wheel isn't just gone. It's being replaced by something that can read your intentions before you even speak them. We are entering the world of neural linkage and biometric synchronization. How does a car know where you want to go before you tell it? And what happens when the car starts to understand your emotions better than you do? The final layers of the 2026 deep dive are about to get deeply personal as we explore the psychological revolution of the future of U.S. driving. The psychological revolution of the 2026 concept car begins with the realization that the vehicle is no longer a passive object, but an active participant in your mental well-being. For over a century, the interaction between a human and a car was purely mechanical and transactional. You turned a key, you pressed a pedal, and the car responded. In 2026, the interface has shifted from the physical to the neurological. We are seeing the first true implementation of non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, BCI, integrated into the very fabric of the automotive experience. Imagine Elena, a specialized surgical nurse working in a high-intensity hospital in downtown Boston. It is a rainy Tuesday evening in November 2026. Elena has just finished a grueling 14-hour shift. As she approaches her concept vehicle, the car is already performing a masterclass in psychological synchronization. The vehicle does not wait for Elena to state her destination. Through the secure link with her wearable health device and the high-resolution infrared sensors mounted in the door frame, the car's AI, which we will call the cognitive core, has already analyzed Elena's gait, her heart rate variability, and the slight tremors in her hand movements that indicate acute physical and mental exhaustion. Historical trends in the early 2020s showed that most vehicle interfaces were designed to demand attention. In 2026, the concept is to reduce cognitive load to near zero. As the door glides open, the interior of the car is not a bright, demanding cockpit. It has already transitioned into a recovery mode. The ambient lighting is set to a specific frequency of 480 nanometers, a soft cyan that has been shown in clinical case studies to suppress melatonin production, just enough to keep her alert for the transition home, while simultaneously lowering her systemic cortisol levels. This is where the deep dive into neural linkage becomes fascinating. In several 2026 concept models from major U.S. manufacturers, the headrest contains a dense array of dry electrode EEG, electroencephalography, sensors. These sensors do not require Elena to wear a headset. They use advanced signal processing to filter through the hair and scalp to read the electrical activity of her brain. As Elena leans back, the car isn't just checking if she is awake. It is performing a real-time spectral analysis of her brain waves. If the system detects a high concentration of beta waves, which are associated with active thinking and stress, it initiates a neurofeedback loop. The car's audio system, utilizing 360-degree spatial mapping, begins to play a curated soundscape of low-frequency binaural beats. The potential outcomes of this technology are profound. We are moving away from the era of road rage and into the era of the automotive sanctuary. Let us look at the mathematics of this synchronization. The car's AI is running a predictive algorithm known as an effective state model. This model takes input from over 50 biometric data points every millisecond. For example, it monitors Elena's pupillary dilation and blink rate using high-speed cameras that operate in the near-infrared spectrum. If her blink duration exceeds 400 milliseconds, indicating the onset of microsleep, the car doesn't just sound a loud, startling alarm as older cars did. Instead, it utilizes a multi-sensory intervention. The seatbelt gives a gentle rhythmic pulse, a haptic reminder, while the scent diffuser releases a microburst of peppermint and citrus, scents that historical trends in aromatherapy suggest can increase alertness without triggering a stress response. This is the step-by-step detail of how the 2026 concept car manages the human element. But the psychological revolution goes deeper than just safety. It is about the transition from a driver to a passenger pilot. One of the most controversial potential outcomes of the 2026 concept cycle is the implementation of thought-based navigation. In these prototypes, the car can interpret high-level intentions. Elena doesn't need to type in an address. She simply thinks about her desire to stop by her favorite local market on the way home. The BCI in the headrest detects the neural patterns associated with that specific location and the intent to deviate from the standard route. The car then projects a soft holographic confirmation on the windshield. Route adjusted for the market. Shall we? A simple ocular gesture. Elena, looking at the yes icon for 200 milliseconds, confirms the change. This eliminates the frustration of fumbling with a touchscreen or fighting with a voice recognition system that cannot understand a tired voice. Consider the case study of the 2026 social cabin. For many Americans, the commute was a time of profound isolation. The 2026 concepts are designed to solve the problem of the lonely mile. While the car is navigating the congested Boston tunnels autonomously, Elena can engage in a holographic presence call. Using the car's internal projectors, a life-sized, three-dimensional representation of her daughter is projected into the passenger seat. This is not a flat video call. It is a volumetric capture that makes it feel as though her daughter is physically present in the car with her. The car's interior acoustics are so precisely tuned that the daughter's voice sounds like it is coming exactly from the position of the hologram. This level of psychological immersion helps bridge the gap between work life and home life, turning the lost hour of the commute into a connection hour. However, the depth of this psychological integration raises a massive high-stakes question. What happens to the boundaries of the self? If the car knows Elena's emotional state, if it can influence her heart rate, and if it can predict her desires, is the car an extension of her mind or a tool of external influence? In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of the Emotional Data Privacy Act in the United States. This legislation is a response to the potential outcomes of manufacturers using biometric data to serve targeted advertisements based on a user's mood. Imagine if Elena's car sensed she was feeling hungry, and suddenly her favorite fast food chain's jingle started playing softly in the background. The 2026 concept cars are at the center of this ethical storm. Manufacturers are having to build neural firewalls that ensure biometric data is processed locally on the vehicle's edge computing hardware and never uploaded to the cloud without explicit, granular consent. The pacing of this psychological shift is accelerating because the US public is demanding more than just transport. They are demanding a partner in their daily struggle against burnout. This is why the 2026 concepts feature things like the circadian cabin. The car's glass roof isn't just a window. It is a sophisticated light filter that can simulate the natural progression of sunlight, even in the middle of a Boston winter. By mimicking the sun's natural Kelvin scale throughout the day, the car helps regulate Elena's internal clock, ensuring that when she finally arrives home, she is ready to transition into sleep rather than being wired from the artificial glare of traditional city lights. As we look at Elena finally pulling into her driveway, the car performs its final psychological task. It conducts a transition ritual. The music fades out slowly, the seat gently returns to an upright position, and the interior lights warm up to match the lighting of her home. This ensures that the shock of moving from one environment to another is minimized. The 2026 concept car has successfully navigated Elena through one of the most dangerous and stressful parts of her day, not just by avoiding accidents, but by actively managing her mental state. But as Elena steps out of her car, she is leaving behind a machine that is about to undergo its own transformation. While she sleeps, her vehicle will not just be charging its batteries. It will be part of a massive invisible labor force that is redefining the very meaning of work in the United States. We have seen how the car thinks, how it feels, and how it protects. Now we must look at how it lives when the human is gone. In the next part, we are going into the secret life of the 2026 concept car, the autonomous shadow economy. What does your car do at 3 a.m.? The answer involves robotic swarms, automated maintenance hives, and a level of coordination that makes the modern internet look like a toy. The machines are waking up and they have work to do. While Robert is fast asleep in his suburban home outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, his 2026 concept vehicle is just beginning its second shift. For the vast majority of automotive history, a car was a depreciating asset that spent 90% of its life taking up space in a driveway or a parking deck. In 2026, the concept of the idle car has been completely dismantled. As the clock strikes 2:14 a.m., Robert's vehicle, a sleek aerodynamic sedan known as the Aries Quantum concept, silently disengages from its inductive charging pad. There is no driver behind the wheel, no lights on in the cabin, and no sound from the electric drivetrain. The car is entering the autonomous shadow economy, a high-stakes network of machine-to-machine commerce that operates while the United States sleeps. The first stop for Robert's Aries Quantum is not a traditional mechanic, but what the industry now calls an auto hive. Imagine a facility that looks less like a garage and more like a high-tech clean room. As the car approaches, it communicates via a secure 6G handshake with the hive's central server. The bay doors slide open, and the vehicle is immediately enveloped by a swarm of specialized robotic arms. This is the implementation of the self-maintaining fleet concept. While Robert sleeps, the Hive performs a comprehensive 5,000-point diagnostic scan. High-fidelity lasers check the tread depth of the airless tires to within 1/100th of a millimeter. Ultrasonic sensors scan the chassis for microscopic stress fractures in the biocomposite frame. If a fluid level is low or a sensor requires recalibration, the robots handle it in minutes. Historical trends in the 2010s and 2020s showed that human-led maintenance was the primary cause of vehicle downtime. In 2026, the potential outcome is a vehicle that effectively never breaks down because it is proactively repaired every single night. Case studies from early 2026 pilot programs in North Carolina suggest that this model can extend the operational life of a vehicle by nearly 200,000 miles. Once the maintenance cycle is complete, the Aries Quantum moves to its next task: micrologistics. The trunk of Robert's car is not just a storage space. It is a modular, climate-controlled delivery bay. The car navigates to a local fulfillment center where a robotic gantry loads 5 small, high-priority packages into the rear compartment. These are items needed for early morning deliveries, medical supplies, fresh groceries, or urgent electronics. By utilizing the excess cargo capacity of personal vehicles during off-peak hours, the 2026 logistics network has drastically reduced the number of heavy delivery trucks on American roads. Robert's car is now earning credits that offset his monthly subscription fee. The math of this is precise. If the car performs 4 hours of delivery work at a rate of $12 per hour, Robert has effectively eliminated the cost of his own daily commute. This is the realization of the vehicle as a productive asset rather than a liability. But the most complex part of the car's night is its participation in energy arbitrage. The 2026 concepts are essentially massive mobile batteries. Robert's car has a 110 kilowatt-hour solid-state battery pack. During the night, the vehicle monitors the regional energy grid prices in real time. This is a masterclass in vehicle-to-grid (V2G) technology. Let us look at the mathematics of this energy exchange. The profit P can be calculated as P sad face P, cell, eta P, by delta E, where P, cell, is the price at which the grid buys back power during a localized spike. Eta is the efficiency of the bidirectional inverter, currently hovering at 0.94 in 2026. P, by, is the low-cost overnight charging rate, and delta E is the amount of energy exchanged. If a sudden storm in a neighboring county knocks out a transformer, the grid's demand skyrockets. Robert's car, along with thousands of others in the network, instantly begins discharging power back into the grid to stabilize it. By 4 a.m., the car has recharged itself using cheap, surplus wind energy, having made a net profit for Robert while he was in REM sleep. While navigating these tasks, the car is also performing what is known as digital rejuvenation. In 2026, a car's software is never static. Throughout the night, the Aries Quantum is downloading and compiling petabytes of data from the previous day's global driving logs. If an autonomous vehicle in San Francisco encountered a new type of road construction barrier, that edge case is processed by the manufacturer's central neural network, and an update is pushed to every vehicle in the fleet. Robert's car is literally becoming smarter while it works. It is learning the subtle patterns of Charlotte's traffic lights, the locations of new potholes, and even the seasonal changes in foliage that might affect its sensor visibility. This is the ultimate expression of the software-defined vehicle. When Robert walks out to his car at 7 a.m., he isn't getting into the same machine he parked the night before. He is getting into a version of that machine that is more efficient, more capable, and more synchronized with the world around it. The security implications of this night cycle are equally fascinating. In 2026, the concept car acts as a distributed sentry for the neighborhood. Using its 360-degree LiDAR and high-resolution thermal cameras, Robert's car is constantly monitoring the perimeter of his home and the surrounding street. This is not a privacy-invading surveillance state. It is a localized, encrypted safety net. If the car detects a fire starting in a neighbor's garage or a water main break down the street, it doesn't just record it. It immediately alerts the relevant emergency services and broadcasts a warning to other vehicles in the vicinity. Historical trends show that neighborhood watch programs were often limited by human observation. The 2026 concept car provides a persistent robotic oversight that has the potential to reduce property-related incidents by over 60% in connected communities. Imagine the level of coordination required for this. At any given moment in 2026, millions of autonomous vehicles are performing a complex, silent ballet across the United States. They are communicating through a decentralized blockchain ledger that handles all payments, maintenance logs, and energy transfers with zero human intervention. This is the autonomous shadow economy, a hidden layer of American productivity that is keeping the wheels of the country turning without a single person having to lift a finger. It is a world where the machine serves the human by taking care of the mundane, the dangerous, and the technical. But as we see Robert's car glide back into his driveway at 6:45 a.m., perfectly cleaned, fully charged, and having earned $30 in the process, we have to look at the final piece of this 10-part deep dive. We have explored the technology, the economy, the psychology, and the hidden life of these machines. Now we must face the ultimate question. In a world where the car does everything for us, where it knows our thoughts, manages our money, and drives our lives, what happens to the human spirit? What happens to the thrill of the open road, the soul of the American driver, and the very concept of freedom that the car was originally built to represent? In our final part, we are going to synthesize everything we've learned to answer the most important question of 2026. Is the future of driving a utopia of convenience? Or have we traded our autonomy for an automated cage? The final revelation of the 2026 concept cycle is about to change how you see the road forever. As we stand at the final crossroads of this deep dive, the central question of 2026 is no longer about whether the technology works, but about what we have become in the process of adopting it. To understand this, we must look at the experience of Jordan, a third-generation automotive enthusiast living in the heart of Kansas City. For Jordan's grandfather, the car was a symbol of raw mechanical agency, a machine that required skill, attention, and a physical bond with the road. For Jordan in 2026, the car is a sentient environment. The final revelation of the 2026 concept cycle is that we are not losing the joy of driving. We are transcending it. We are moving into an era where the car is a curator of human experience. One of the most profound potential outcomes of the 2026 concept movement is the preservation of the heritage drive. Automakers realized early in the 2020s that a significant portion of the United States public feared the loss of the tactile connection to the machine. In response, 2026 concepts have introduced heritage simulation technology, or HST. Imagine Jordan deciding that, for his Sunday morning drive through the Flint Hills, he doesn't want the sterile perfection of an autonomous pod. He toggles the heritage mode on his Aries Quantum. Suddenly, the steer-by-wire system, which normally provides zero resistance, recalibrates. Using high-frequency electromagnetic actuators in the steering column, the car begins to simulate the precise vibrations and weighted feedback of a 1967 manual rack and pinion system. The haptic pedals under his feet begin to pulse with the simulated rhythm of a firing internal combustion engine, even though the car is powered by silent solid-state cells. This is a masterclass in psychological engineering, using the very technology that replaced the past to perfectly emulate it. The depth of this simulation is achieved through a process called synthetic kinematics. The vehicle's active suspension system, which usually works to eliminate every bump, is reprogrammed to let through the specific road textures that a driver would feel in a classic sports car. This allows Jordan to experience the thrill of the corner and the weight of the G-forces without the danger or the carbon footprint. Historical trends in the gaming and simulation industry have finally merged with automotive manufacturing to create a vehicle that is a multi-dimensional simulator. This solves the problem of the automated cage by giving the user a choice. You are not forced into a passive role. You are given a suite of identities that you can wear depending on your mood. In 2026, the car is the ultimate role-playing device. But we must look at the data regarding the collective shift in American safety. This is the heart of the 2026 utopia. Case studies from the first quarter of 2026 show that in areas with high concentrations of Level 4 and Level 5 concept vehicles, the rate of severe traffic accidents has plummeted by over 80% compared to historical trends from 2021. The United States is on a trajectory to save nearly 40,000 lives annually. This is not just a statistic. It is a fundamental shift in the American psyche. The fear of the highway, the anxiety of the merge, and the tragedy of the distracted driver are being systematically erased from the national experience. When we talk about the trade-off between autonomy and convenience, we must weigh the weight of those 40,000 lives. The potential outcomes of a fully synchronized road network suggest that by the end of this decade, the car accident could become as rare as a steam engine explosion is today. Let us explore the concept of the kinetic legacy. In 2026, the car has become a medium for storytelling. Through the integration of augmented reality and 6G data streams, Jordan's vehicle can recreate historical events as he drives through Kansas City. As he passes the site of an old jazz club, the windows of his car act as transparent displays, showing him a digital recreation of the street as it looked in the 1930s, complete with holographic pedestrians and period-accurate lighting. The car is no longer just moving Jordan through space. It is moving him through time. This is the deep dive into the car as a cultural portal. The vehicle utilizes its precise geolocation data and high-bandwidth connection to the city's digital twin to overlay history onto the present. This turns every commute into a potential educational masterclass, a way for the U.S. public to reconnect with the geography of their country in a way that was never possible when they were focused solely on the bumper of the car in front of them. Now, we must address the final economic synthesis of the 2026 world. We have discussed the subscriptions, the shadow economy, and the data sovereignty. But the ultimate result is the decentralization of the American city. Because the 2026 concepts have solved the problem of the lost hour, the geographic constraints on where we live and work have dissolved. We are seeing a potential outcome where small-town America is being revitalized. Families are moving back to rural communities in the Midwest and the South because the commute is no longer a barrier. If you can work, sleep, or connect with your family in a mobile lounge that travels at 80 miles per hour with perfect safety and zero emissions, the 3-hour round trip to an urban office becomes an asset rather than a liability. The 2026 concept car is the engine of a new American renaissance, enabling a high-tech life in a high-nature environment. The final revelation of the 2026 concept cycle is that the car has become a mirror. It reflects our values, our fears, and our highest aspirations. It shows a society that has chosen safety over recklessness, sustainability over waste, and connection over isolation. While we may have traded the physical autonomy of the steering wheel, we have gained a new kind of freedom, the freedom of time and the freedom of safety. The 2026 concepts are not just glimpses into the future of driving. They are glimpses into a future where technology has finally learned to be human. As Jordan steps out of his car at the end of his simulated heritage drive, the vehicle doesn't just shut down. It acknowledges him, updates its local model based on his driving style, and prepares itself for its next task in the silent, nocturnal economy. The bond between human and machine has not been broken. It has been elevated to a level of partnership that our grandparents could only dream of. This is the end of the 10-part masterclass on the 2026 concept cycle. We have seen the morphing exteriors, the living interiors, the solid-state hearts, and the neural brains of the machines that are reshaping the United States. We have explored how they will pay for themselves, how they will heal themselves, and how they will protect us. The road ahead is no longer a path we have to navigate alone. It is a shared digital and physical landscape where every journey is a choreographed movement in a grand, national symphony of mobility. The future of U.S. driving is not just about the car, it's about the life you lead once you get there. As we look toward 2027 and beyond, the innovations we have discussed today will move from the concept floor to the production line. The experimental will become the everyday. The world of 2026 is just the beginning of a larger story, one where the American road is once again a place of wonder, discovery, and limitless potential. The only question left is, where will your time take you now that the car is doing the driving? The possibilities are as vast as the country itself, and the journey has only just begun.